What's the true cost of a lifetime of hard work? In the fall of 1929, for millions of everyday Americans, it plummeted to just 10 cents on the dollar. Not over years, but in mere hours. Picture this: hard-working folks staring at ticker tapes in stunned silence as their life savings, their kids' college dreams, their golden retirement years, their family homes vanished like smoke. But here's the chilling reality no one talks about enough. The stock market crash was just the opening scene. The real horror show? A decade-long nightmare fueled by human errors, arrogance, blind spots, and rigid ideas that nearly broke the world's richest nation. And by the end of this video, you'll spot the eerie echoes of those same cracks showing up in our world today. Buckle up. This isn't some dusty history book recap. It's a deep dive autopsy of the 20th century's biggest economic meltdown. We'll break it down step by step, not just the what, but the why behind the chaos. Why did trusted neighborhood banks become deadly traps? How did a simple drought spark a massive human exodus straight out of the Bible? Why did a president chosen to steer the ship end up as a poster child for paralysis? And crucially, what finally dragged America back from the edge? These insights are like a crash course in economic cause and effect that every investor scrolling stock apps, every voter at the polls, and every citizen worried about their future should know. Because history doesn't loop on repeat, but it sure as heck rhymes, and the bill from the 1930s is still teaching us hard lessons today. The fuse was lit in the Roaring Twenties, when America wasn't just thriving, it was absolutely on fire. Assembly lines spitting out cars and radios, real GDP exploding 4 to 5% a year, a boom the world had never seen. But Wall Street? That was the beating heart of the madness. The Dow skyrocketed from 63 to 381 points. Suddenly your barber, your shoe shine guy, even your dentist, everybody had a can't-miss stock tip. The secret sauce? Buying on margin. 10% down, borrow the rest, turn $100 into $1,000 overnight. The mood on the street? Pure, unfiltered euphoria. This time it's different. The party never ends. But underneath the confetti and champagne, a house of cards. Overproduction, crushing farm debt, almost all the new wealth vacuumed up by the top 1%. America's roaring economy? Nothing more than a glittering skyscraper built on shifting sand, just waiting for the earthquake. Whispers of trouble started in the summer of 1929 as the smart money quietly slipped out the back door. Then October hit like a thunderclap. Black Thursday, October 24th, 13 million shares dumped in a single day. Big bankers locked themselves in smoky rooms, pumping cash into the market, and for one brief moment, it looked like they'd stopped the bleeding. But Black Tuesday, October 29th, was total apocalypse. Sell orders crashed in like a tsunami, 16 million shares in one session. Ticker tapes fell hours behind. Traders screaming buy and sell orders into the void, completely blind. By the closing bell, $14 billion gone. More money wiped out in a single day than America spent fighting the entire First World War. This wasn't just numbers on a screen. This was terror in mahogany offices, brokers screaming down phones for margin money that didn't exist, lifetimes of work shattered in hours. The world they knew, over. And folks, that was only the spark.
The real fire was about to rage.
The crash didn't stop at the stock market. It went straight for the throat of America's financial backbone, the banks. The fatal flaw? In 1929, there was no deposit insurance. Your bank failed? Poof! Every dollar you had was gone. Banks had been swimming in the bubble, drowning in risky margin loans. When the market collapsed, rumors turned into panic, and panic turned into a stampede. Picture it. Ordinary men and women, faces twisted with fear, pounding on locked bank doors, screaming for their money right now. But banks don't keep your cash sitting in a vault. They lend it out. So to pay the mob, they called in loans, sold assets at fire sale prices, driving prices even lower, creating more failures, a death spiral. Between 1930 and 1933, more than 9,000 banks, 1 out of every 3 in America, slammed their doors forever. Money and credit simply disappeared. Prices began to collapse. Debts grew heavier by the day. The entire economy was sucked into a black hole. It was like slamming on the brakes at 100 miles an hour. Just when Americans thought it couldn't get any worse, Mother Nature decided to join the fight. The Great Plains, America's breadbasket, turned into the Dust Bowl, a living nightmare. Decades of deep plowing had torn away the ancient prairie grass that held the soil together. Then came the drought, merciless, endless. The earth dried to powder. Winds screamed across the plains, lifting billions of tons of topsoil into the sky. Black blizzards rolled in, walls of dust so thick they turned noon into midnight. Livestock suffocated where they stood. Crops vanished under drifting dunes. Dust crept into homes through every crack, coating lungs, food, dreams. This wasn't just bad weather. This was environmental revenge. More than 2.5 million people abandoned their farms, the largest peacetime migration in American history. They loaded everything they owned into broken-down cars and headed west on Route 66, chasing rumors of work in California. But California wasn't paradise. It was a mirage. No jobs, only hostility and no Okies signs. John Steinbeck called them Okies, Americans turned into refugees in their own country. Heartbreaking, isn't it? And it made an already unbearable depression 10 times worse.
The statistics are brutal. 25% unemployment. GDP cut by nearly a third. But numbers can't capture the soul of the Great Depression. You have to see the faces. You have to walk through the Hoovervilles, shacks made of cardboard, tin cans, and broken dreams, bitterly named after the man in the White House. Endless bread lines, once proud businessmen in threadbare suits, waiting hours for a bowl of watery soup. Mothers stitching dresses from flour sacks. Families hitching horses to cars because gasoline was a luxury. Entire households crammed into one cold room just to share body heat. This wasn't just poverty. It was slow-motion humiliation, day after day, stripping away dignity, until only quiet, burning anger remained. And yet, in the middle of all that darkness, Americans showed the world the resilience we still carry in our bones today.
At the helm of the sinking ship stood President Herbert Hoover, a brilliant mining engineer, a self-made millionaire, the man who fed starving Europe after the Great War. His core belief? Rugged individualism. Government help, he said, would poison the American soul. So his plan was cheerleading. He begged companies to keep wages high. He asked charities to do more. He told 12 million unemployed Americans to just stay confident. Then came his masterpiece, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff of 1930. The highest import taxes in a century. The rest of the world answered with their own walls. Global trade collapsed, and the Depression went from bad to catastrophic. To millions of cold, hungry Americans, Hoover looked like a man rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The great engineer, fiddling while Rome burned. The people had had enough. They wanted action. They wanted hope. And in 1932, they threw Herbert Hoover out. And then, in the darkest hour, America finally got the leader it was praying for. March 4th, 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt takes the oath, banks collapsing all around him, and delivers the line that changed everything. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And then he moved faster than any president in history. 100 days of pure, unrelenting action. First, a national bank holiday. Every bank in America closed its doors for 4 days to stop the bleeding. Then the alphabet agencies exploded onto the stage. CCC, 3 million young men planting forests, building parks, finding purpose. WPA, 650,000 miles of roads, 125,000 schools and hospitals, murals on post office walls. TVA, taming wild rivers, bringing electric light to forgotten farms in the South. This wasn't just spending money. This was America telling its people, we are not going to let you fall. For the first time in history, the federal government stepped in, not as a bystander, but as the guardian of its own citizens. The New Deal had begun, and America began to rise again. The New Deal didn't end the Great Depression overnight. That final blow was delivered by World War II and its massive spending. But what the New Deal did was build the America we live in today. Social Security, so retirees would never again eat cat food. FDI, so your bank account is safe even if the bank isn't. The SEC, to keep Wall Street from gambling with the nation's future. Most importantly, it changed the contract between Americans and their government. When crisis hits, Washington acts. That's why 2008 didn't become 1929 all over again. The firewalls Roosevelt built held. The scars of the 1930s still mark us, but they also remind us that when Americans stand together,
We are unbreakable. So here's the lesson, carved in 10 years of American blood, sweat, and tears. The Great Depression wasn't caused by one villain. It was a perfect storm of unchecked greed on Wall Street, banks with no safety net, leaders too proud to act, and a wounded planet that struck back. It taught us that pure, unregulated capitalism will eventually eat itself alive. It taught us that when government does nothing in a crisis, doing nothing is not neutral. It is a choice, with millions of broken lives as the price. And it left us one final warning, written in dust and despair: extreme inequality, market euphoria, political division, crumbling trust in institutions. These are not modern inventions. They are the same ingredients that almost destroyed us once before. We are not doomed to repeat the 1930s, but we are required to remember them. Because forgetting doesn't just cost money, it costs entire generations.
All right, quick question. What hits you the hardest today? The insane bubble vibes, the leadership fails, or the warning signs we're seeing right now? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Let's geek out on history together. And if you want to see how World War II finally ended the Depression and created the biggest economic miracle in history, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell right now. Thanks for watching. You're the best audience on YouTube. See you next week.